Hello, hello. Welcome on this. For me, it's still morning. I guess everywhere it's still morning, but it's almost going to be afternoon on the Saturday morning of the Summer Self Care Conference. It has been amazing so far. And I am here, Khristen Massic. If you have been able to watch my presentation already, my presentation was primarily about planning hacks for busy secondary teachers. But if you've got any questions, you are welcome to shoot off whatever question you have. My background, so I taught for 10 years as a high school engineering teacher. My husband currently still teaches high school engineering, or sorry, not engineering. He teaches welding, but at the high school level. And then after I left the classroom, I went into administration and I timed it really well so that I could be there a little bit before the pandemic and then all during the pandemic and then after. So I was a middle school assistant principal and now I'm at the district office as an instructional coach. And that's my day job. And then I have this on the side where I support teachers. I was finding that there was a big gap, especially in um, supporting multiple prep teachers. And I have a CTE background, so career and technical education. And there was a lot of support in content, but there wasn't as much support within like how to manage it, how to become a better teacher when you weren't a core teacher. It felt like the core teachers had it all figured out, which is not necessarily true, but that's what it looked like. Okay, so I've got several people in here. I'm seeing from the comments. Keep the comments going because then it helps me know like that you've got questions. We've got Margaret here, Simona. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but hopefully I am. From Romania. Oh, and you're teaching 11th and 12th grade ELA. Nice. Okay, then we've got Brittany who also teaches 10th grade ELA. And then we've got Maggie in here too. So we've got all over. We've got Erica, welcome. So we've got some elementary. We also have secondary. One thing Christina is here, 8th grade. One thing that I've noticed when it comes to multiple preps is that a lot of us, it is a term that we use a lot in the secondary world. So if you are teaching more than one class, which typically that is most of us, some of us it's harder to do than others. As far as if you're teaching ELA, you might be teaching just 10th grade ELA, or maybe you're teaching 10th, 11th, 12th. Maybe you're also throwing in something else in there like a creative writing class. Maybe you are teaching like the ESL ELD class, you're teaching something as well. And then we've got and then elementary, you're just always teaching multiple preps because you have math, science, ELA, reading, and sometimes it's just hard to figure out how to like make it all work. And a lot of us have a favorite, which is great, but I try to go in and help you figure out what to do. So if you have any questions, I do have some questions prepared. Margaret watched the presentation already, and one of the things that I said in there that she said she loves is using the same activity for each class was a great suggestion. This was a game changer. So if you haven't watched the presentation yet, I'm just going to tell you what's going on. You can decide to do something for one class and do it for everything. And that was really vague. But the idea is I loved doing, and my students loved doing a gallery walk. With the gallery walk, with that teaching strategy / protocol, you have posters or big pieces of paper or even those big post-it like sticky notes. And it's a little bit like a jigsaw, but you have students in group. This is how I've done it in my classes. There's lots of different ways to do it, but I would have students in groups. They would learn about a topic or a subtopic that we were talking about, and then they would create a poster, something to show off what they were doing. They did it. They would also do it if they were brainstorming ideas. So with my engineering classes, they would be brainstorming ideas. And then they would they put them up on the wall and we would do a gallery walk. You can do a couple different things with a gallery walk. You can have students comment on like what they like and what they wonder. And that's what we did a lot when we were like brainstorming ideas. But then there's other things that you can also do where those students are teaching each other. And this is where it's a little bit like a jigsaw. So based on the information that they put on the poster, you could have a a note-taking guide, or you just teach your students how to fill out the note-taking guide, and they go around and they just get information. Maybe they pick the two most important things from every poster. So that's just like the background of the gallery walk. So this is where you start to like this is where the magic happens. And this is what Margaret had pointed out that I had talked about, is using that same activity. So no matter what you are teaching that day, especially at the secondary level, I don't know if it would work so well with elementary. Elementary, you can definitely repeat this. So if you were doing a gallery walk in uh, like it with ELA or something, you could keep doing that and you could do it several times. So you're training your students how to do it. But what I did is I would have like my architecture class, I would have my engineering class, I would have my capstone class, all doing that same activity that day, because then I only had to prep for that one activity. So all of my supplies were out, all of the posters, I didn't have to really clean up between the classes. That's like the hardest time, is that however long you have a passing time, like whatever, 5 minutes, some people have 7 minutes to transition from one subject to another. I had everything out there. So that is my favorite thing to do. The only thing that changes on your part is with the prompts you're giving your students. So you can do this with pretty much any different teaching strategy or protocol that you enjoy and that your students enjoy. And just know that, okay, today we're doing fishbowl, and we're going to do a fishbowl discussion in every single one of my classes, but we're talking about different things in each of the classes. But that way my classroom can stay set up the same way, or I already know what questions to ask. All right. So we've got, yes, multiple preps is very different. Gallery walks are so fun in first grade. I'd love to see here how my students communicate with each other. We use gallery walks a lot when we're doing professional development with adults. And I find that with a gallery walk as well, it's a little bit of like low risk for students, because they can still get their ideas out, but they're not having to raise their hand in front of everyone. So I love that. Okay. All right. Christina has a question. So, not to change the topic, but just the thought of looking at my schedule and breaking down student free time and delegating specific time at home. Hope I got cut off. I needed for prepping, planning, preparing. How to utilize that time in advance is going to be a huge game changer for me. It is such an easy way to make a huge difference for myself. Sometimes it seems like we eat, sleep, and breathe this job. This is going to be so helpful. I know I've heard people talking about how we tend to internalize ourselves as teachers. So everything is like, we're a teacher first. But looking at your schedule, so watch the presentation because I go through the schedule, and I'm looking at like what you have available. Now, I will say this too. I didn't put this in the presentation. I think I did in one of my recent podcast episodes. But I really like to think about, as well as like a work life blend. I try to blend things as much as possible. So, one of the things that I like to do if I have to work at home, which unfortunately, like I wish we could totally get rid of everything that we have to do at home, but sometimes we just have to do it. Right now, my kiddos are small. So my oldest is 11. Well, he's 10. He will be 11. And then my youngest is 9 weeks. But I have my 5-year-old and my 3-year-old. They still like us to be in their vicinity while they're falling asleep. And so I'll read to them, make sure that they're all ready to go to bed. And then I'll sit in their room and I'll work in the corner. So they know that I'm there. And that's kind of how I blend things. Um, okay. And then, So that's one of the things that I like to do to blend, besides the fact that we cart our kids around to a lot of things, but that also helps. All right. So Erica, yes, definitely watch the session. I hope that I didn't go too fast, but I was trying to get as much in there, but not totally overwhelm you. Another thing that I feel like is really important to hit on from the presentation is the idea of your energy levels throughout the day. So, planning and prepping and choosing when to do basic tasks when you have the right energy. For me, I am a morning person. I had first period prep my first couple of years of school, like, of teaching, and it was the best thing ever for me because I had this huge chunk of time where I could just get a lot done, and they were like heavy lifting tasks. After lunch, not so much. Usually after lunch, if I had my after lunch prep, it ended up being that I had like an extended lunch and it was a little bit harder for me to get things done. And so what I would do after lunch was very different than what I would do in the morning. So thinking about my energy, I was a lot more tired for me personally. And so the things that I would do after lunch would be copies or things that didn't really require very much, if any, cognitive lift on my end. And I would really like break things up that way. So thinking about that, the other thing is when you're talking about the other thing I like to talk about is your seasons of life. So there was a time before I had kids where I could stay after school. And unfortunately, I feel like a lot of times those are the Instagrammers that we see a lot of. They have no kids. They teaching is their life. And so they have the beautiful rooms and they redecorate the rooms for units. And as a multiple prep teacher, and if you have a family or anything outside, that's just not realistic. For your season in your life, that's not going to happen. So it's okay. I do not decorate my boards when school starts. So it kind of seems like a little lame and a little bit boring, but what I do is I use student work. So I wait until I have examples and then that's what I'm using for my bulletin boards instead of worrying about putting together like a beautiful bulletin board. Yes, there's not much to look at when they first come in, but secondary students, they don't really care anyways. So just knowing your season of life. The other thing with my season of life that I'm in right now, I want to leave the moment contracted time is over so that I can be with my kids. So I'm not spending time after school. So figuring out how to really like make that work, getting the most done during that window is really helpful. Okay, I've got some other things I want to share with you. If you've got a question, make sure you put it in the comments. Um, I wanted to show you a tool, and I'm pretty sure that we'll experiment. I'm pretty sure Brittany gave me the power to do this. Okay, I hope my audio still works. But I wanted to show you a tip, or not a tip, it's like a website. And I don't know that I mentioned it in my presentation, but one of the things that tends to be a little bit difficult is figuring out like prioritization, and not just prioritization, but like how much and what is required for each task. So I might say, like, I need to plan tomorrow's lesson, and that's what I need to do. And so I'll put that on my to-do list. But in reality, that's more than one thing. There are a lot of subtopics. So I need to print out the assessment. I need to, now I'm coming up with like a random idea, but there's just more that goes into it. Maybe I need to have a better example. Like maybe I'm doing an email to parents. And if I put that on my to-do list, communication with parents, Okay, what does that mean? Am I needing to write an email from the beginning? Am I needing to send it? Am I needing to send specific emails to students who were struggling? Am I following up with students who have been absent? Like, what does that mean exactly? And how do I break that down? So there is a tool, it's free. You just type it online and it's Goblin Tools, like Goblin, like the little monster thing. Okay, I'm going to show you my screen. Oh, let's see. So this tool, and hopefully you can still hear me, it's called Magic to Do. And you can have an item. So here is I experimented with write my welcome email for students and parents. And then it gives you like a step by step what you need to do. And now it's AI, it's just shooting out there. So it may not know everything. There's an example right here where I had write a lesson plan and it gave me a whole bunch of different things. So you can remove things, you can add a subtask, you can estimate like how long this will take and you can put it in there. You also can do the spiciness, and I don't know how they came up with this, but you can choose how many peppers to have. So how much breaking down do you need or do you want? So you can have a task that maybe you're not breaking down very much. But what I like about this is that instead of putting in, I'm going to come back. Oh, we can see me. So what I like about this is instead of me writing write welcome students for uh, students and parents, I can actually put each one of these. Once again, this may not be a great example, but I could break this down. And if I only have like 2 minutes, I could say, okay, I'm going to address recipients during this 2 minute time. This might be not maybe not the best one to break down, but you can look at like the lesson plan and maybe I'm going to go over like my learning objectives during the during that like crucial time where I need to be thinking a lot. And I'm probably going to delete this because my target audience, they're my students. I don't really need to worry about that. But it's just a tool that you might find interesting or might find helpful along the way. So that is Goblin dot tools. And I haven't used any of the other ones, but I have used this Magic to Do and it's been helpful just to kind of break down to figure out like what needs to be done. All right. Okay, I'm going to stop my screen share. Now, for those of you who are here, I think my free tool. So Margaret's saying that she's got to try the gallery walk. And there's different ways to do it. You don't have to use like the sticky post-it notes. I like them. They are a little bit on the spendier side, but my school would buy them for me. But you could just use like butcher paper that you um, taped up, or you could have them on tables or desks and have students go around. But my freebie that is in, if you get the workbook, so that's like the key, get the workbook when you watch my presentation, go and get the workbook. And my freebie in there, I'm pretty sure, maybe I need to double check this, but it was my strategies, my simple strategies. What it is I've put together 22 different. Okay, I'm looking. Okay. So it's in the bottom after you look, like scroll down. I have my simple teaching strategies toolkit. And what that is it's got 22 strategies and protocols that are low to no prep, things like the gallery walk, just different ideas. I remember when I first started teaching, my mentor, she was like, "Oh, well, you'll just get better. And one day you'll have all of these, like this toolbox." And year 6 came around. I'm like, where's my toolbox? Like, I thought I would have all of these collected. And what I was finding that I was doing is I didn't really have the time or the mental capacity to find teaching strategies because of all my multiple preps. And then I was also getting that shiny object syndrome. I would see somebody do something and I was like, oh, I have to do that instead of repeating it, which I'll go over in a second. But it's got 22 in there, so you can start with something. Now, I will say you do not need to use all 22, but what it has in there is it has a description and kind of the objective of that protocol. And then it lists materials and then gives you instructions on how to implement it so you can um, teach your kids how to use it. So, this is what I like to do. So, once again, you do not need to use all 22. My favorite thing is to choose 1 to 3 that I'm going to try and use, and I'm going to use it over and over and over again, which seems boring. And even my instructional coaching friends, they're like, oh, yeah, you've got to switch it up. That's a lie. You do not need to switch it up. Now, if your students are starting to act out like behaviorally because they're bored, then maybe you switch it up, but you do not have to switch it up if it's working. If it's working, if your students love it, if you love it, keep using it. But what I like about reusing and repurposing these is that you can use that same thing over and over again. So with the gallery walk, my students knew what to do. When they walked in and it was set up for a gallery walk, they knew the protocol. I had already trained them. And you elementary teachers, you are like pros at this. Secondary, we need to work a little bit, but they were trained. So they knew what was expected from them, which eased their minds. They knew the process, they knew what was going to happen, they knew what to do, when to do. I didn't have to do a lot of reminding. And that's what happens if you only have like 1 to 3. My husband uses one protocol over and over again. He does a quiz. And so what he does is when he does his direct instruction, which is he has it figured out because his students are in the shop. He does direct instruction once every 2 weeks because of the block schedule. But after his presentation is done, the students know that they are going to get into pairs and they're going to put together a quiz, a 5-question quiz of the 5 most important things or 5 things from what he discussed. And then they work together or in pairs. They decide now in that pair, okay, these are the 5. Then they get with another pair and they work with that other pair. They give each other the quiz and then they decide from their group of 4 which 5 to move on. And you can even use that as like a bell ringer for the next day, but he uses that over and over and over. And his students, they know what is required. They know who they're going to turn and talk to. They know who their elbow partner is. It just works out super seamlessly. And on that note, I'm just double checking. Any questions right now? Okay, so on that note, with the process or the strategies and the protocols and reusing them, I have started using AI to do the heavy lifting for me. So gallery walk, you can go into AI, and I'm using ChatGPT, but you can use pretty much anything where it has a place for you to like free write and ask questions. I'm using that and I'm saying, hey, I am teaching this in first period, this in second period, this in third period, this in fourth period, and I want to use a gallery walk. And sometimes I have to front load the AI and let them know like how I do gallery walk, but then I ask it, give me the prompts. Then I don't really have to do much work. I look over the list and it's giving me ideas of those prompts to use for the gallery walk. And I didn't have to come up with it. It's like the best thing. It saves a ton of time. I've done a lot of tests with it. I even have a workshop that is within the VIP pack. And so if you get the power pack or the VIP pack, it has the repurpose. Now I can't read. I'm losing the name of it, but I have a workshop in there that will go over how to repurpose and rinse and reuse your strategies. And it gives you a bunch of prompts so that you can just kind of fill them out Mad Lib style and then copy and paste them into whatever tool you're using. And you get out, here is the way to use this protocol in every single one of your classes, even if they are teaching very different topics or subjects during that day. So there's a video that goes along with it, and then all the prompts and a workbook. So that's within the VIP pass. All right. Any questions? So we're moving along. I've got 5 more minutes. I'm going to look at some of like my frequently asked questions that I get a lot. So the one I get probably the most is, how do I balance my planning time when I have multiple preps to manage? And I think this is the most difficult thing to figure out how to do. So you do need to have a to-do list, and you need to figure out, is this a planning task or a prepping task? Because there are a lot of things that you can batch together, that it doesn't matter what your subject is or what class that is, and you can separate it so that it could be, or I guess group them so that you can get them done at the same time. So that is going to be super helpful when figuring out like that planning time, what to do during that planning time. We talked about already like repurposing like different strategies so that you're doing the same thing every single day. So when you're planning, so this isn't necessarily balancing, but it will help you get more done during your planning period, is to not plan in silos. So when I'm looking at my architecture class and my engineering class and my capstone class, I'm not just planning like 2 weeks for architecture and then I'm forgetting about what's happening with the other classes, because sometimes what I tend to do on accident, not intentionally, is I will plan things that are happening at the same time. So I will be ending a unit on the exact same day, which doesn't seem like it would be a big deal. But typically, when I would start a unit, that would require a lot from me, because there was a lot of front loading, there was a lot of direct instruction, a lot of presentations. What am I doing? So I would make sure that I offset them and staggered them, and that helped me balance. It also helped on the flip side when it came to grading. So just double checking to make sure that you don't have big assignments all due on the same day. So using Google Calendar or whatever calendar you use, and when you're assigning something, you're writing down when it's due so that you don't have like 12 hours worth of grading to do on this one weekend because you decided to have everything due and you weren't really paying attention. And then we did go over energy levels. So when you're balancing, take a look at your energy levels and really like lean into your energy and like, when are you going to be able to get the most done when it comes to planning? The other thing that I would stress, that if you don't have work at getting something, is to have like a curriculum map, just so you can have like a bird's eye view of where you're going for each one of your classes. And it doesn't have to go deep at all. Even if you just have a basic idea of, here are the units, and within these units, these are the standards that I'm going to need to be teaching, that will at least get you moving so that you have an idea and you're not having to spend a ton of time worrying about that. All right, I've got my little timer going. So I've got less than a minute. Does anybody have any last minute questions they are dying to get answered while we're here? Okay, in the last 30 seconds. So here's my plug. You want to get the workbook, the and the strategies. That's my free one. That's at the very bottom of the presentation. Like once you look at it, scroll all the way down, the very last thing. And then the next thing you're going to need to do is if you get that VIP pass, then you get the workshop on how to repurpose those strategies that you got for free. All right. Hopefully you enjoyed. Let me know if you've got any other questions. I will talk to you soon. You're welcome. I know